Alright, it's July 17th. We dove into John 18 as well as 19 today. John is something. John's unique. It's like it's a different approach compared to the others. I don't know how to explain it. It's just different. Everything flows differently. I guess that's why it's not a synoptic, right? Obviously, but why is it written the way it is? I don't know. I don't know who John was. I'm gonna have to look back in those notes. I know I have them somewhere, but it's just an interesting written account. It really is, compared to the others. But again, I don't mind it. I think it's cool. And this is the last account of the four of Christ, his trials, crucifixion, burial, all of the above. This is the last account. So first thing I caught was the trials and the number, and I've heard 6 trials before. I think I've mentioned this in the video. It didn't make sense to me. I get it now. It actually went Jewish and then Roman. And it started with Annas, who was father-in-law of Caiaphas, and Caiaphas was the high priest. So it's weird. It started with Annas. I don't know who he actually was, but it started with him. And then it went to Caiaphas. The trial went to Caiaphas, the high priest, and then Caiaphas took it to the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin took it to Pilate. Pilate took it to Herod. Herod took it back to Pilate. And Pilate is the only one who has authority to actually put Christ to death, to crucify him, to settle that in that way, to do what the people wanted and end him, right? Pilate was the only one that had authority here. Herod had nothing, and the Jews had nothing. Not under their law, they had nothing. But yeah, that's what I caught first, was like the trial number and all that. Because it goes to one guy, then the other, then the high priest, and then Sanhedrin, and then it goes to the Romans, and it's confusing, but that puts it into perspective that he had 6 trials in the course of a very short amount of time. Yeah, like over one night, I think. Because Herod was also in Jerusalem, it says. I believe it said that in Luke at the time. He was in Jerusalem, so they didn't have to travel anywhere to go to him. So, anyways, that's that. In chapter 19, I caught verse 4. So, Pilate, he had no desire to crucify Christ. Like, he wanted none of that. I think in Luke, 3 times he tried to, I think I just did that. I just said that in the video, yeah. 3 times he tried to, like, change their minds, basically, and say, like, no, I'm not going to do that. But eventually he gave in. Here we see, not 3 times again specifically, but he had no desire. He actually took Jesus and scourged him, did all the mocking, whatever. I don't think it was him that scourged him either. I think it was others. But he scourged him, and then brought him out again and said, like, hey, here he is. I find no fault in him. You know, he actually says, behold the man, you know, like, whatever. And then the chief priests see him, the people see him, and they all start saying, crucify him, crucify him. And Pilate says, he actually says, I'll quote that, verse 6, you take him, you crucify him, for I find no fault in him. He wanted nothing beyond a simple scourging. And again, I think that shows his, there's no faith there, but he didn't want it. He didn't want it. So at what point do you, like, have a respect for him over that? I don't know. But he did not want it. And he shook his hands clean. He washed his hands clean, actually, I believe, in Matthew. Like, I think that's cool. I think that's respectable. I don't know. That's that. But I have a certain respect for him. I do. And here in 25 through 27, with the title, Behold Your Mother, Christ seeing his mother and seeing the disciple whom he loved, which I believe the disciple whom he loved was John. It actually says it down here. It is John, who is the author of the book, right? It's kind of cool. John, the disciple whom he loved, he saw them two standing next to each other, and John was, I believe, supporting Christ's mother. And Christ says, "Woman, behold your son." And he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And it says at the end, from that hour, that disciple, John, took her to his own home. So Christ's request there was that he was going to be lost. He wanted his earthly mother protected and cared for. And he wanted John, the disciple whom he loved, to do exactly that. That's powerful, that he saw his mother, his earthly mother, that he knew obviously had a great presence in his life, but I don't know. It's cool that he had that respect for her, even though she was just his earthly mother, right? She is important in that way, and he had worry over her, that when he left, she would be cared for. So he made sure that happened. I think that's really cool. It's really cool that that's there. And then something I caught in verse 30, when Christ said, "It is finished," and he gave up his spirit. It actually says, quote, he gave up his spirit. Not that his spirit was taken from him, but that he willingly, I said voluntarily, handed over his will. He knew the purpose of his actions. He knew the purpose of his life on earth. And that was exactly it, for him to give up his spirit, for him to, again, hand over his will. It's a really powerful line. Really, really powerful line. But yeah, then that's obviously where he's crucified, and he's buried. And chapter 20, we'll get into the empty tomb and the commission to the apostles and all. That'll be cool. So that's that. That's the fourth and final account. It's John 18 and 19. See you.